Hello! Welcome to the podcast, There Is No Spoon. In this season of the podcast, we're exploring the 12 Rules for Life by psychologist Jordan Peterson. In the previous episode, we talked about whether life has any rules at all and why we should study someone else's rules instead of just making up our own. Today, we'll discuss the first of Jordan Peterson's rules. Please share in the comments whether this rule resonates with you and whether you follow it in your own life. Peterson formulates his first rule as follows: stand up straight with your shoulders back. One of his key ideas is the concept of the dominance hierarchy, which he considers fundamental. According to Peterson, it exists in any community, from animals to humans. While it may be shaped by society, culture, or rules, its essence remains. Someone is always at the top, someone else at the bottom. A person's position in this hierarchy is crucial. Being at the bottom means worse living conditions and fewer opportunities. You can move along the hierarchy. Success moves you up. Failure drags you down. And here comes an important point. Unlike the current trends in education that stress the importance of learning from mistakes, reality, in Peterson's view, does not forgive them. This topic is highly ambivalent in today's discourse. On the one hand, there is a strong trend toward teaching people to accept their own and others' right to make mistakes. Many psychologists help clients make this belief acceptable. Mistakes are normal is a popular stance, and sayings like, "the only people who never make mistakes are the ones who never do anything," support it. This position seems reasonable, but reality shows it to be unstable. In school or university, mistakes, even on final exams, are allowed, but in adult life, they carry consequences. A tax error can result in prosecution. A mistake in relationships may lead to an irreparable breakdown. A doctor's error can cost lives. Of course, one might object that mistakes vary in seriousness. Even so, if a mistake happens, self-blame is unproductive. Better to draw conclusions and avoid it next time. And this is where Peterson's logic enters. What kind of future are we talking about? If we step away from determinism and see the future as a changing possibility, shaped by the individual, environment, and events, then a mistake is not just an unpleasant incident, it becomes something larger. We could divide mistakes into two categories: tolerable misfortunes and true defeats, with wider consequences. Nietzsche's famous line, "What doesn't kill me makes me stronger," can mislead us by minimizing the true damage of defeat. What matters is not just what we think cognitively, but how our organism reacts, psychologically and biologically. This is where Peterson's example of lobsters is revealing. Their nervous system is simple enough for experiments, and their responses to defeat are biologically significant. Peterson writes that lobsters fight for limited shelter, and even lobsters raised in isolation know how to behave in confrontation, displaying built-in aggressive and defensive moves, using fluid sprays to signal size, gender, health, and mood. And losing has lasting consequences. A defeated lobster, no matter how dominant before, becomes hesitant, even with weaker opponents. A badly beaten, dominant lobster's brain dissolves and regrows into a subordinate's brain, better suited to its new lower position. In our context, this means that while human brains don't literally dissolve, biochemical changes likely occur. These processes are ancient and not consciously noticeable. Evolution preserves what once worked, and we still carry behaviors similar to lobsters, reminding us that culture is a recent addition. We sense these changes as mood shifts, energy loss or gain, cognitive or emotional changes. In other words, biological changes inevitably affect the psyche. Denying this is like burying one's head in the sand. Peterson writes that the lobster's brain cannot handle the shift from king to underdog, so it dissolves and grows anew, something anyone who has suffered defeat in love or career can relate to. This calls for a rethinking of defeat. It's not good, not normal, not something that strengthens us. Defeat sets us back. While retracing past steps may be quicker, it's still redundant work. Defeat lowers us in hierarchies, where we then must climb again. So the conclusion: avoid defeat, especially in vulnerable hierarchies. Peterson doesn't say this explicitly, but humans exist in multiple hierarchies: professional, personal, financial, health-related, etc. Each person experiences these differently. Some are stable, others fragile. Errors in stable areas may be harmless, but in fragile ones, they may be fatal. Now, two caveats must be made. First, this isn't to say we should fear all defeat or catastrophize it. While avoiding defeat is helpful, it's unwise to wallow in guilt. Defeats happen, and we must accept them and live with them without trivializing them. A defeat is a defeat, an error that could have been avoided. We are imperfect, but this imperfection calls for atonement, not blind acceptance. This brings to mind religious concepts of sin. Unlike some Protestant beliefs that sins are already redeemed, I believe repentance and atonement are essential. Psychologically, this means taking responsibility, processing the event deeply, and actively working to prevent recurrence. Second, exceptions exist. Like any rule, this one has them. In my view, exceptions are existential events, life-altering situations that reshape worldviews. These may be random, or synchronistic, as Jung might say, or stem from accumulated past choices. For example, a person may long hold a worldview that suddenly becomes obsolete. But the inertia of the old worldview remains, biologically and cognitively. To shake someone out of this, something extraordinary must happen, either synchronistically or through a buildup of events. This collapse of worldview is a defeat. It destabilizes the individual and affects all their hierarchies. But is this always negative? Not necessarily. To build something new, the old must be broken. Existential events offer opportunities for change, though they are rare. So defeats should only be viewed this way in exceptional cases. To summarize, humans, like animals, operate within dominance hierarchies. Our position affects us psychologically and biologically. Except in rare cases, being higher in meaningful hierarchies is better. The bottom brings no benefits, only negative effects like depression, pessimism, or psychosomatic issues. The only way out is climbing up. As for Jungian interpretation, dominance hierarchies may seem biological, but they are not limited to behaviorism. Jungian psychology can reveal their symbolic meaning. One of Jung's developmental stages is the heroic phase, in early life when the ego roots itself socially and meets basic needs. Becoming an adult involves assuming responsibility socially and culturally. The heroic path is an inner transformation. The hero returns, changed. What changes him? Achievements. In modern terms, career, home, family. Of course, this is symbolic of inner maturity. This is hard to claim without real, objective achievements and social recognition. Both are linked to Peterson's hierarchies. Victories raise status, social approval confirms it. Fairy tales end with heroes becoming kings, symbolically the top of a hierarchy. This is not enough, and later, individuation stages address it. But as a pragmatic model, Peterson's hierarchy explains the heroic life stage in plain terms. He brings modern context to classical development. Lastly, the psychological consequences of defeat are profound. Peterson links the bottom of the hierarchy with increased sensitivity to external stimuli. This part of the brain is ancient and simple. It judges our behavior and others' reactions. If negative, it predicts no help and signals danger. So the body shifts into survival mode. Psychologically, this means heightened anxiety. Anxiety evolved to help minimize threats. But in modern life, constant alertness drains resources. serotonin drops to increase sensitivity, worsening the situation. In a past season, we discussed innocent suffering and belief in a just world. According to Lerner and others, belief in justice is needed for long-term goals. It's a deal with the future. But anxiety consumes all resources now, leaving none for the future. Long-term goals fail, worsening our condition, since modern life is built on long-term investments. The vicious cycle continues. Peterson adds another consequence. The ancient brain may even suppress the immune system to redirect resources. It makes us impulsive, chasing pleasure no matter how shameful or harmful. This leads to addiction, compulsive eating, or anorexia. In short, the problem of being low in the hierarchy lies in a vicious cycle. Low status increases anxiety, reduces external support, drains future-oriented vitality, and keeps us stuck, or worse. The biggest challenge in breaking it is that its biological roots remain unconscious, so treating symptoms, e.g. with medication, may worsen the issue rather than solve it. One of the ideas Peterson presents in his lectures is that self-respect, which is essential for personal well-being, can only be achieved by dangerous people. By dangerous, he means those who are capable of fighting back, including physically. Those who can, if necessary, use physical or psychological force to resolve conflict, and who are aware of this capacity. This is actually very close to the Jungian idea of integrating the shadow. Integration is impossible if everything dangerous within a person is suppressed, if only the solar side of the personality is acknowledged, and the rest is denied existence. While the heroic epic defines the first half of life, the second half begins with the work of the apprentice, according to Jung, the integration of the shadow. This requires recognizing all aspects of the personality, which must manifest in reality in some way. Tying the idea of a dangerous person to dominance hierarchies, one could say that only such a person can rise high. This doesn't mean climbing over others, but the potential must be there. Here, Peterson writes an important thought. Let me reiterate. The difference between the ability to maim and destroy and having a strong character is minimal. This is one of life's most difficult lessons. This observation, I think, clearly explains the role of this part of the personality. It helps to build self-respect, which in turn forms a character capable of withstanding external chaos and adversity. Being dangerous doesn't mean seeking conflict. It means having a strong character and the ability to hold and defend one's ground. Like attracts like. Earlier, we discussed how a person's position in the dominance hierarchy affects the body on a biological level, including hormone production. But this raises a question. Can we trick this ancient part of the brain by acting in reverse? In other words, can changing something physically improve our psychological state? Peterson says yes. His advice is, stand up and straighten your shoulders. Why does this work? First, it may work on a social level. He writes, some feedback loops, expressed through body language, extend beyond subjective experience into the social space you share with others. If your posture is slouched, your shoulders down, your chest caved in, your head hanging low, you appear smaller, defeated, and weak. In fact, this may be a protective posture to avoid attack. And you will feel small, defeated, and weak. Others' reactions will reinforce this feeling. Like lobsters, people size each other up, partly based on posture. Second, the physical manifestation has symbolic meaning. To rise physically also means you must rise metaphysically. Standing up means voluntarily accepting the burden of being. When you willingly accept life's demands, your nervous system responds differently. You're answering a challenge, not drowning in disaster. You see the gold, the dragon's treasure, instead of being paralyzed by fear of the dragon itself. You step forward to claim your place in the dominance hierarchy, to claim your territory, and declare your readiness to defend, expand, and transform it. This can happen both practically and symbolically, as physical or conceptual restructuring. So to break out of the vicious cycle, one can start from the physical level. It's something nearly anyone can do, regardless of resources. And that's what I like about Peterson. A simple action that becomes the first step out of the spiral. What does stand up straight with your shoulders back really mean? There's a reason I connected this rule with Atlas. When a person stands up and straightens their shoulders, it's not just about tricking the nervous system into producing more beneficial hormones. It's a choice. And as discussed in episode 20 of the podcast, every choice is tied to responsibility. Here, it means a person is ready to consciously accept responsibility for their life. That's the core of the first rule. And it's only fulfilled when responsibility is truly accepted. Peterson writes, "To stand up straight with your shoulders back is to accept the terrible responsibility of life with eyes wide open. It means deciding to voluntarily transform the chaos of potential into a habitable reality. It means accepting the burden of self-aware vulnerability, of the end of unconscious childhood paradise, where mortality and morality are only faintly understood. It means voluntarily accepting the sacrifices necessary to create a productive and meaningful reality. In the language of the ancients, it means acting in a way that pleases God. This essentially is what we all must do before we can call ourselves adults. An adult is not someone who can vote or has lived many years. An adult, as Freud put it, is someone who has become their own parent, who has taken responsibility for their life without placing it on their parents, society, the state, or God. This was the podcast, There Is No Spoon. Until next time.